So there's another topic I wanted to talk about in regards to the discussion of country music that I've been doing, and this is a theme that comes up a lot, and it's related to what John Vervaeke refers to as domicide, and it's being separated from home, or specifically from your land, and demos is this Greek word that basically means the land from where we get democracy, and downstream of that, I guess the Latinization is things like dominion and domicile, which is a home. And there's a huge connection, a huge range of country music songs that very closely tied to those ideas. Um, and I think that some of it is a cultural thing, because it's a music that's very much placed in the South, and this is something where Thomas Sowell, he really analyzed a lot of the culture of the South, and he was trying to figure out like why, um, like African Americans weren't succeeding proportional to other populations. And what he ultimately found out is that it was because they were imitating the white culture of the South, the rednecks basically. And uh, most of those people are descendants of Scots and Irish people who were not farmers but were more likely to be herdsmen, which, in America, that's your cowboys in a lot of ways. And what that lifestyle requires to be successful is very much tied to the land and the defense of the land, because you need a lot of land to let animals graze, and you needed to protect that territory, and territorial disputes were common, or you couldn't let people basically profit off of your land. That would be against your detriment. And this is different from real farming cultures like agricultural communities where people had to work together, where that's really an advantageous thing. And downstream of all this, there's all this stuff about like these silly feuds, and there's really a lot of like corruption in the legal system, because basically people will not prosecute crimes if it was like a matter of honor, at least at a certain point in history. Probably some of that's changed a little bit by now, but probably up through the midpoint of the 20th century, there probably really was the case. Um, that even a lot of crimes, like police wouldn't bother arresting people if it was something that they felt like it was okay to settle between feuding parties or whatever. So, but what this really comes out of this, at least from the musical standpoint, is that there is a very strong cultural tie to your land, your home, the place where you are from. And you get this in all sorts of names. Um, like a song like Georgia on My Mind. He's not in Georgia, he's just thinking about Georgia. And um, all the southern states, somebody's written songs about them. The Carolinas, about Tennessee and Mississippi and Texas. And today, we figured we would do one about Alabama from the band named Alabama. And they have many songs that kind of touch on these topics. But I would say, it's an interesting thing, because on the one hand, like that pride of like where you're being from is actually a really good thing. It's like a man doesn't love a city because it's great, but he loves it because it's his own. Or you think about just like even the loyalty that people have towards sports teams where they grow up. It's not because they necessarily are the best. Sometimes, if they are the best, those people tend to be overly braggadocious, and it's not fun to be around them. Um, but people love these teams because they are their team. It's the home team, and I think that in and of itself is a very good thing. people get in trouble when they have a strong affinity for their culture and actually view it as being superior to others solely on the basis of it being the culture that they're from. And that's where you get stuff like white supremacy coming from, or whatever. That's not that's an overreaching of what is special about that. And it's tough. We can't even have good conversations about this stuff. But that sense of having a home and being intimately connected to it, and then being disconnected from it, and that's the domicide, the death of, or the loss of your home, is really a recurring theme. And so I think there's several songs that I may eventually talk about, but thought that this one would be a good one to start with. And this guy does a good job covering it. He's only got 54 subscribers. Like, that's pretty low. So give him a little more exposure. But you can check this out.
Drinking was forbidden in my Christian country home. Learned to play the flat top on them good old gospel songs.
So that's an interesting setup there. Drinking is forbidden, Christian country home. So he's kind of differentiating himself maybe from right away from whatever you're thinking about. This is obviously a very different song from like drunk rednecks. He's saying, oh no, drinking was forbidden, and Christian country home, he's upholding those morals.
Had to learn about the barrooms.
And then of course he is saying you learn to play the flat top, that's the guitar, the flat top guitar, as opposed to the arch top, on them good old gospel songs. So that's where he learned his skills. He's a naive kid, just knows the songs he hears in church, and he's learning how to play them. And then
across the Georgia line.
Sorry, back it up.
Learned to play the flat top on them good old gospel songs. Had to learn about the barrooms across the Georgia line.
So then it says, then I heard about the barrooms just across the Georgia line. Oh, the barrooms. He doesn't know anything about drinking. It was forbidden. He doesn't know anything about barrooms from his Christian country home.
Where a boy couldn't make a living playing guitar late at night.
So that's the motivating factor. I can make a living, which is always an important thing to notice in any of these things, especially, this is masculine music. And the masculine drive is so much connected to our ability to make a living, and I would say, it's always a balancing of responsibilities, being satisfied with a living. If you are doing something that you love, it may not have to be a great living if you're doing it, because it's in opposition to like selling yourself out in some office somewhere or doing something that you hate. Now, you may be willing to do that if you, for instance, are married and you have children. Then you subvert your own desires of like what standard of work or what types of things you may want to do for the sake of taking care of your family. That's the same male impulse. But because I think ultimately it's not like, this is a thing people would consider like, this guy doesn't care about making a lot of money. He's happy just playing guitar in bar rooms. But it's more about like I think a fear of failure, and in that sense, like being good in the space of the barroom and succeeding there is better than feeling like you don't know what you're doing in some office or something like that.
Had to learn about the ladies, 'cause I was too young to understand how the young girls fall in love with the boys in the band.
So here he's, a young kid, and I was just hearing a thing about like George Benson was jazz guitarist, but he was talking to another guy, and they were talking about their experience of playing in bars, with a band before they were actually old enough to enter legally the, as customers, and that's kind of a not an uncommon experience if you're a musical prodigy. And so obviously, we think what we know about this guy so far, drinking's forbidden, and he's learned everything he knows playing gospel songs. So chances are he hadn't even heard about bar rooms until he's a little bit older. He's not a worldly kid. He doesn't know the ways of men and women, and he's too young to understand why the young girls fall in love with the boys in the band. Which the next lines are very interesting. Let me get there in a second.
When the boys turn to music, the girls just turn away to some other guitar picker in some other late night place.
So this is the really interesting line. He says, when the boys turn to music, the girls just turn away to some other guitar picker in some other late night place. So, which is like a thing. So they like the young boys in the band, but when the boys turn to music, they turn away. And I think what he's getting at here is, this is Jordan Peterson talking about these sort of dominance hierarchies and the way that men basically will set the hierarchy, and women will peel off from the top the guys. And this is saying, I think you could say in a culture like this, there's a hierarchy of musicianship and, charisma and all the things of that are associated with being in a band. That's an ambitious thing. It's not it's very much more of an ambitious thing for a young person to do rather than I don't know, getting a job at a grocery store or something. Even if it might pay less money, it's more like proof of potential. And so the girls are falling in love with these guys, and the idea would be, think about small town. This is just across the Georgia line. This is not. This isn't even saying Atlanta. This is some dinky town, and there's some bar, and there's some band playing, and the girls are peeling these guys off the top. And the idea is they're peeling them off to take them home, to get married. Put the guitar up on the wall and tell our kids about how you almost had a chance at being famous. But if the guys are turning to the music, the girls turn away. In other words, if the girls can't distract them from what they're doing, they're too focused on the music, that's not the right person for them. They're not interested. So then they go to some other guitar picker in some other late night place.
I held on to my music. I let the ladies walk away.
And there you go. Held on to the music, let the ladies walk away. Because, of course, this is still in a culture, because think about this. Drinking was forbidden in his Christian country home. He's just right across the Georgia line. So those sort of family values are still there. It's not like the hookup culture of today necessarily, because it's usually probably people doing things a little out of order. The girl's going home with you, she's gonna get pregnant, and then you're gonna get married, and that's kind of maybe the way they plan it. It's probably been happening for a long time. Um, in human history is what I'm saying. But um, so he lets those ladies walk away. You know, he's probably not. He's not even flirting. He had to learn about this. He didn't know it. He was too young to understand even still. So, in one sense, he probably missed some of his opportunity to kind of figure out that particular game, and he was more interested in the music. He just wasn't at peak fascination with women. So he held on to his music. He let the ladies walk away.
Took my songs and dreams to Nashville, then I moved on to LA, up in New York City, all across the USA. I've lost so much of me, but there's enough of me to say.
So, songs and dreams to Nashville, moved up to LA, New York City, all across the USA. And then he says something really interesting. He says, I lost so much of me. It's just what, because at a certain point, if you think about like in that first verse, everything he knows is in that home. Drinking's forbidden. We're Christian. I'm playing the guitar on these gospel songs. Like, this is his whole world. And, as he goes into those bar rooms, he feels it's a foreign environment. He's not comfortable. He doesn't know the way that it goes with the girls, which in some sense is probably to his benefit because it helps his, he's good enough at the music thing to transcend that experience. And then he goes to all the big music centers of America. Well, everything that is him now, like his life is way more about being on the road and that experience than it is of home but so he's lost a lot of that, but there's enough of me to say, and this is the chorus, of course.
But my home's in Alabama, no matter where I lay my head. My home's in Alabama, southern born, southern bred.
So there you go. So his home is in Alabama. That's his home, his Christian country home where he learned to play flat top on them good old gospel songs. That's his home. And, no matter where he lays his head, it's not home, And so you think about, he moved, he took his songs and dreams to Nashville. That's that's a move. You when you get into Nashville, you're staying there. I think it talks a little bit about this, but there's very much there's another hierarchical culture there. You start off, you're a wait. Everybody's a songwriter, but you're also a waiter or whatever. And you're writing songs, and you're going to these open mic nights, and you're trying to get your name out there. And then you're in the same time, you're selling your songs, maybe, if you can. You make some demos, you have somebody else doing it. They are not interested in having you perform them, but if a busy, already successful artist is recording an album every year, he needs 13, 14 songs or whatever, or more than that to choose from. So they'll just take songs. You take your songs first, and then eventually, if you get good enough a reputation of writing the songs, that's when you get your shot. But that's if you stay in Nashville. So then what? He moved on to L.A. and New York City, and so these are places, he's living in these places, but that's not where his home is. No matter where he lays his head, his home is in Alabama. And of course, the last line there, southern born and southern bred. And so that southern thing is almost to say, this is a part of being southern, is that where you were born is your home. Your connection to the demos is through birth. It's a birthright. And that's why, even if it's a trailer park It's your trailer park, and nobody can take that away from you. And it's good for you to appreciate that. Let's keep going.
What keeps me going? I don't really know. Can't be the money. Lord knows I'm always broke.
So there you go. What's keeping him going? It's not the money. He's not really sure, but it's not money.
Could it be the satisfaction of being understood? When the people really love you, they let you know when it's good.
So there you go. That's a big one. Could it be the satisfaction of being understood when the people really love you and they let you know when it's good? So like, wow, yes, the satisfaction of being understood is a very big deal. And I'd say anybody that's been in this little corner of the internet very much knows that that's the appeal of it, is that you are having conversations with people, that people are hearing you, they're understanding you, you're finally getting that feeling like my experience is not unique. And in some sense, this is sort of a paradoxical thing. America's a land of immigrants. People have always been moving from somewhere else. And I think that probably some of that Domicide language very much you can hear in like Celtic music and stuff. It's very much about that old country, and then you come here and that kind of morphs into country music. But now that people have been here for a few generations, this is your home here in Alabama, or wherever in the United States. But when you were there, then you don't know, there's nothing keeping you going when you're there. If you're there, you're happy. And I think that's the thing of why country music is it's a sad music. Many of the things we talked about are natural tragedies, death, divorce, things like that. But you have to leave to miss home. And once you've done that, and if you are willing to share as a songwriter can, then you will find the people drawn to you who feel the same way. And that is, so you will be understood. But that's the kind of paradoxical thing, is that you need to leave home and miss home to find your purpose as a songwriter or whatever. But
I speak my southern English as natural as I please. I'm in the heart of Dixie, Dixie's in the heart of me. Someday when I make it.
And I would say that's an interesting line there. Talking about speaking his southern English just as natural as he please. In the heart of Dixie, Dixie's in the heart of me. That's a signifying thing. And it's interesting because now I experience this kind of in reverse. Obviously, living in the South now, I hear Southern accents fairly often, but or it's just the bland way people talk when they've moved here from California. But every once in a while, I'll be in a store or something, and I'll hear somebody talk, and it's like clearly like a New England accent, and that's like, oh, where'd you grow up? And it's like, if anybody, it's hard for people to understand this because I am always talking here on the channel where I talk. But in real life, very rarely do I strike up conversations with strangers. But if I hear somebody who's got a clear New England accent, and like in a store or something, that's something that's enough of a impetus to be curious and actually engage with people. And I think that's even an interesting thing that you think about. Missing home will make you more bold, whereas you went like so. I can't be my most natural person, personality wise, in that regard. I have to transcend my natural instinct to reach out, because of loneliness, or not really lonely, but nostalgia, or just it's very very rare that I get to talk to somebody about the things that I remember from my childhood or whatever in this place.
If luck can find a way, somewhere high on Lookout Mountain, I'll just smile with pride. Somewhere when I make it, if luck me. Someday when I make it, if luck can find a way, somewhere high on Lookout Mountain, I'll just smile with pride to say that my home's in Alabama.
So there you go. He's saying again, someday if I make it, uh, um, he's gonna. Let me see. I'm just here. Where is? Yeah, Lookout Mountain. Lookout Mountain's there in Alabama. Or it's right. It's kind of right along the corner of Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee. So it's like it's when he makes it, he's gonna go up there and it almost to say, when I am a person that's important enough to brag about where I'm from, I'm gonna go stand on that tall mountain and I'm gonna point down and say my home's in Alabama. Um, it's just it's an interesting thing. It's almost that's an interesting dimension of this, is that he almost in a sense does recognize there's nothing inherently special about his home. It's not a place necessarily that people are envious of. It's not Malibu or the Hamptons, or places that rich people live. And his desire is to say, when I make it, when I become successful and I'm a known person, I'm going to look from that mountain on my hometown where I grow up, and I'm going to, in a sense, from a position of height, he's going to elevate the land that he came from. Which, I mean, that's what else makes a place known anyway? Isn't it because great people have come from there? Like, we wouldn't care about Rome if there was no Julius Caesar. So yeah, it's an interesting it's an interesting observation, or thought that he has there. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't see making it as escape. He's been to L.A. and New York, but that's not his goal. His goal is essentially, to be able to move back home, but to bring with him success.
No matter where I lay my head, my home's in Alabama. Southern born, southern bred.
All right, so that's pretty much it. I think there's another chorus, there, but that's all the lyrics of the song. So, yeah, it's a very common theme, and I think that's definitely something that we've discussed in this this area. That feeling of loss, of being away from home, of not having a home, and that I think that's the thing, that this music is that it's emotional music. It's something that resonates with you. You connect to it, and that's a good thing. It's good to be able to have that. That is the liturgical aspect of these songs. Is that you might not be able to articulate why you want to live in some crummy corner of wherever that you grew up, or why you, um, because I could say in many ways, San Antonio is a nice big city. In many ways, it is better, and I do think this on a regular basis. In many ways, it is better than Hopedale, Massachusetts, but it's not. But there is something of, wouldn't it be nice to be back there in some ways? I don't feel this nearly as much as my wife does, because a lot for me, because the career prospects aspect of it was so much better here. So in the same way, like, I left for the similar reasons that he had to cross the border into those seedy bar rooms. But it doesn't negate the fact of those memories. So all right, well, that's good for this one. I think that we'll definitely talk about this from some other angles in some other songs, but that's a good for now. So thank you for listening.